With so many good shows, especially this year, it's hard to say this is the best series on television. Well, it's something like The Pitt that rarely comes along. It's hard not to say that. The Pitt may just be my favorite show of the year, and I want to talk about it. I also want to talk in depth about the finale last night, and this is coming to you from the perspective of someone who doesn't love medical dramas, and not because, I hate the genre type of thing. Medical stuff freaks me out. When I go to the doctor's office, my blood pressure is high. Yeah, I'm one of those. Funny thing is, my wife is a nurse, and so we're opposites. I can watch a war movie, something like Rambo, see all the blood you can possibly handle, but with a medical show, with that first episode of The Pitt, I'm telling my wife, I don't know if I can do this. It actually raised my blood pressure. And this being the most realistic medical drama that I think it's the most realistic one I've ever seen. Because normally with a show like this, there's this big-time office romance. You've got the hunk doctor coming in and saying lines that feel like they're straight out of ChatGPT. Just the most ridiculous elements. And sometimes it really works, like Grey's Anatomy. So many people love Grey's Anatomy. My wife is rewatching House right now. So she's into these types of shows that maybe take these elements a little further over the top than a show like The Pitt does. But The Pitt keeps it grounded and realistic and terrifying. The other thing about this show that was really appealing is I am a Pittsburgh guy, big time, and so when they said it was The Pitt in Pittsburgh, and they're referencing things across the city, and you've got an Altius shout out, Altius. I was looking a little harder for the Pittsburgh accent, though. You don't get a lot of dons or ats throughout this. Not the doctors per se, but the patients. Regardless, stupidity aside, look, this show is awesome. It's awesome. And my wife, who's a nurse, she's not an ER nurse, but an OR nurse, and normally one to critique these types of things. I remember when we were watching Doctor Strange, and she's like, he's not got the gloves on, blah, 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 when he's washing his hands. I'm like, this is not what I look at. This is what you look at. This is why we're compatible. But in this series, there were only, and I'm talking every episode, a handful of times when she would say, they are not referencing this correctly, or they're using the wrong name, or maybe they're saying something wrong. And I ask her for these things, right? She's not just doing it to do it. But in this show, I'm looking at her like, is that right? And she, most of the time, not every time, but most of the time would go, yeah, they're saying that correctly. They're taking the proper precautions. They are asking the right questions. Like, how often do you get that in medical drama? And so to combine that realism with phenomenal performances and ensemble cast that's extremely likable, then you bring in the night shift crew, you're introduced to new characters, and the fact that it all takes place over the span of a day. I think that's the most unrealistic part. Is yes, the emergency room is insane. I've been there a couple times over the last few years with some health scares, but obviously not as big of an emergency as most of the people in this show. I hated it. I could only imagine the doctors, how they're feeling, what they're going through. And my wife, who's a nurse in the OR, she's like, I'm in the OR, not the ER. And she's stressed all the time. I could only imagine what these individuals are going through. And so to see that applied to a television show in a city that I love, with characters who are unbelievable. They have awesome dynamics, and we'll dive deep into them in just a second. First of all, I do want to wrap up the finale, just finalizing some plot points and story threads that we've gotten throughout this show, but also not taking it to another level. We just had Pitt Fest, and 100 and something people came in, and it's one of the craziest. And again, going back to the unrealistic side of things, yes, it's very crazy what goes on in the ER, but I do feel as if everything they had to deal with combined with Pitt Fest and then all of the other traumas coming in was pushing believability on occasion. Like, there's no way that many things happen in one day. Like, that's pushing believability just a little bit. But at the same time, I can't sit here and say it's impossible that all of that happens because the world that we live in is wild. And so I just love this show so much. Let's talk about the finale, this final episode, and starting with Dr. Robby coming in, saving the day. I thought that would be a bigger element of the finale when they come in and they're trying to arrest McKay because she drilled a hole in her ankle monitor, and Robby looks at some of the other police officers and says, hey, we couldn't save your partner's life if she wasn't here. And for them to come in and try to take her away, first of all, was pretty crazy. But also, yeah, that was one of the biggest, the biggest mass casualty situation in this fictional Pittsburgh history. You come in and take her away for saving people's lives. That's not right. Whatever the rules are or the law is. And so I'm glad they got that solved fairly immediately so we could focus on some other things. But McKay is a character, I believe one of the more interesting characters throughout this entire show, from the how she got the ankle monitor to how she decided to go about the David situation. I was on her side, and I understand what Robby's approach was to that situation. You're going to ruin this young kid's life if he didn't do it. Yeah, but even if he didn't do it or he wasn't planning on doing it, it's the idea of having all of those girls' names written down. There's something to that could, down the road, psychologically kind of push him in a certain direction. And so I'm on her side. My wife and I both were on her side. You're doing the right thing, regardless of how it is impacting the here and now. And I love that she went in and talked to him as well. And so her story arc was great, coming to a close there. And then Robby giving the big speech, like the rundown. Hey, here's what happened. I'm sorry it happened. Take all the time you need to reflect, go home and cry, especially if it was your first day, which it was for numerous people. The most insane first day in the history of any hospital ever, I'm sure. Again, I love that Robby is taking charge, but, the emotional impact is coming out, man. He's tearing up. He's, Abbott's trying to console him, like, hey, what's going on? And then not to skip too far ahead, but I do love that we're coming back to that moment in episode 1 when Robby's on the roof with Abbott, and, Abbott's kind of broken as to what he just experienced. This time you get the inverse of that, and I loved that. Such a tender moment between two incredibly talented individuals, two individuals who have been through it. And you see a little later on with what Abbott's had to go through with his leg. I just thought, first of all, the addition of him coming in as the night shift nurse a couple of episodes ago prior to Pitt Fest was amazing. He had some awesome moments with some of the doctors, and I really like the night shift crew. I hope next season maybe we spend some more time with the night shift crew than we did, because for me a couple of episodes just wasn't enough. But Robby breaking down, Langdon told him, look, one of the night shift nurses saw you breaking down. If you go back to that episode, there is someone who walked in for a brief moment, and Whitaker trying to be the one to console him, but I guess the rumor was spreading that Robby was unable to handle everything that happened. And the Langdon situation, part of me is like, man, he's such a good doctor. You want to keep somebody like that around, but at the same time, this is someone who made a massive mistake. This is someone who was doing something extremely wrong. And Robby, even though he's a friend, even though he's writing the letter of recommendation, he's doing the right thing here. As a medical professional, you keep your patients in mind and keep them above all else. And Langdon making that mistake, making that decision, putting his patients' lives in jeopardy if he's not being completely honest about what he's doing. And how can you trust him at this point? Because he went behind everyone's back and broke the rules. And so in this circumstance, I'm on Robby's side. Langdon, you're a great doctor, but you make those types of mistakes, you're going to get punished for it. And it seems to me like Robby is unflinching. He's not budging. In that last conversation that they had with each other, it's not going to go well for Langdon, I assume. And so we're going to get the resolve of that, I assume, in the next season. But man, what a very intense conversation between the two. But I do like that Robby didn't rat him out, especially to Dana. He kind of kept that in between them. And so that's nice, even though eventually it'll get out. The measles patient and how the dad goes behind the mom's back because mom's just not budging. And that's one thing I'll say about this show. Like, I understand realistically that some people are just psychopaths. They're crazy. They're stuck in their ways. They yada, yada, yada. But there were times in this season where you're pushing the boundaries of believability by trying to prove a point. And I'm not going to say it's unrealistic because people can be crazy. I completely understand that. But there were times in this show, it's just like, I don't know if your child's life is in jeopardy, would you go so far as to stick to something that you don't know is true? It was hard for me to believe that, but again, it happens. And so, a few occasions in season 1 where the Pitt was trying to prove a point or say something where, man, I just don't know if I believe someone would do that or say that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I mean, maybe they would. Regardless, Robby making the decision to take the dad and show the dead Pitfest victims was like, oh, man. And then Robby going in there to see Jake and Jake telling him what he told him. It's like, oh my gosh, I understand you're devastated. But boy, that's rough. And so Robby, again, why he was on the roof in the first place, just reflecting, he's been through it. This day has been horrible to all of them. First-time individuals and Robby, but man, what a rough thing to go through. Got a few storylines that resolve or don't resolve, like what's going to happen with Dana. It sure feels like she's not going to be back next season. She's had enough, but he says, I'll see you Monday, and she kind of gives him that look, and so you never know. I thought Dana was such an awesome character this season. I mean, truly just keeping everybody in line. We're always coming back to her. Everything works underneath her umbrella, and I love people like that, and I loved her. How about Javati and the office romance, if you will? I liked seeing that, asking her to come out for a beer afterwards. That was great. She's like the chosen child because of her mother. You get a couple of story elements throughout the season that build her up. And that's another thing about the Pitt, man, is every character gets something. I love the resolve to Dr. King's character, right? First of all, realizing that was Bryan Cranston's daughter, was one thing. I'm like, oh my God, because she's one of the most lovable characters throughout the entire show. Her quirks, her inability to be extremely personable, just the way that she goes about certain things. But you get that little relationship with her sister at the end of the episode, what she's been teasing throughout this season, man. What a wonderful, wonderful character. What a wonderful performance, man. I'm watching her thinking, man, I know people like that. Some people who are introverted, forced to be extroverted. And my wife was saying, I know plenty of people like that, but at the end of the day, they're the ones you trust. They're the ones who you're putting all of the stock into as someone who can help me and save my life. And I love how she captured that. And so what an amazing character. Santos, and how about Santos and Whitaker? Santos had this thing going on with Langdon the entire series, but then she walks in on Whitaker just hanging out on one of the floors of the hospital. He doesn't have a place to stay. He can't afford an apartment. And she's like, you know what? People were wrong about me. How about you come stay with me? And so I thought that was a great, very unexpected, like, poor Whitaker, man. He's been through it. If anyone's been through it this season, he's been through it. And then he goes and catches the rat, and everybody's like, yep, you're the bloodhound. You've got to go track everyone down. He's basically the Jerry from Parks and Rec of the Pitt. I think that's a great comparison. Except people like him a lot more than Jerry. It's just kind of the guy that gets stuck in the horrible situations consistently. And that's the consistency that I saw throughout this show for every character. It's like each situation that they find themselves in, always consistent with the character that they set up, and they're just bringing around plot points for pretty much everyone throughout this show, throughout season 1. There are things established early on in the day that we always come back around to, and I thought that was beautiful. And this final episode, not being the most intense of the season, I found that to be a great decision because, again, after Pitfest, you just need to calm it down. And it wasn't without its drama, right? The pelvis case that comes in, the measles boy, you've still got some medical elements going on, but you've also got Dr. Robby like zoned out during the pelvic case. He's just like, I'm not here, I'm not present, Abbott. Realizing that, noticing it, and man, what a day for this crew. And what a show. What a show. I never thought I would be sitting here raving about a medical drama. It's not really... Again, it's not my cup of tea because I'm a baby when it comes to medical stuff. But I watch this, I get invested in the show, invested in the characters. It's raising my blood pressure, but I couldn't wait. And my wife and I, we picked this show up probably 6 or 7 weeks ago. So we got to binge the first 9 to 10 episodes, which was amazing. Look, sorry for you all. I know you've been watching it weekly, but Binging it was phenomenal. And then when we get to the newest episode, we're like, do we really have to wait a week? Like, this sucks. I don't want to wait because it's so good. I love this show, man. That's how you know, right? When you're just so sad that it's over and you have to wait. Less than a year, though. I believe they announced season 2 for January of 2026. And so I'm probably going to do episode reviews. I was late to the game. That's my bad. The biggest part about this review, though, is I want to hear your thoughts. And I know you enjoyed it, but how much did you enjoy it? Who was your favorite character? What do you think about The Pitt? Is this the next great medical drama? Or am I just overreacting? Drop that like, share this review if you enjoyed it, obviously. The Pitt is possibly the best series of the year. Maintaining this level of intensity from week to week is as impressive as it gets. But keeping these characters consistent and interesting for 15 episodes is an accomplishment that cannot be overlooked. Dr. Robby is the next iconic television character, and this is definitively my favorite medical drama of all time. After one season, that's really impressive. Again, not really my genre, but maybe it is now, thanks to The Pitt. I don't know. I'm a Pittsburgh guy. I'm biased. All right. Thanks for watching.